That's why I can say so strong. I can say it because I say it myself. No. Yeah. So I mean, and once again, what we have here is that's why Jesus is doing this. He's in human flesh, and right now in this moment he's choosing. This is in his humility. I mean, this gives us a grasp of just the amount of humility that God, someone who's perfect, first off, would take on our flesh. Not only take on our flesh, but hang out with sinners, and full well knowing what could have been. Okay, like you guys are living in a world of imperfection, and I know what a world of imperfection looked like. And then he decides to live in this realm, this fallen realm, and still humbles himself to the point where he's willing to ask a fallen human being for help. I mean, it's like asking. It would be like us asking, you know. I mean, there are any number of examples like someone who is disgraced in the community to help us out with something, or like it would be like asking a pedophile who everyone abhors in the community to help us move, or just asking someone like in that regard, like God looking at us would be like us looking over, in a sense, like a pedophile or someone who's just a horrible human being by societal standards, So that's the thing. So he asks Peter, he says, I need your help. That's the other thing, is if he gets in the boat, he can project better on the water, or from the water onto the hill. He's got acoustics in his favor, in a sense. So that's why he needs to go out to the water. And once again, Peter does it, and this takes Peter some effort too. Keep in mind, he's tired all night, but he's exhausted, but he knows he has to go out and kind of keep the boat. He's rowing out there, however much, because it's a lake, and he's got to keep Jesus in the right place. So really, really interesting stuff. So what we have here is Jesus uses Peter's earthly reality of being a fisherman to assist in his proclamation of the gospel. As Jesus preaches from the boat, Peter is there controlling and moving the boat. Jesus needed his rowing skills because in a large lake, rowboats easily drift, and that's the other thing. And we'll get into this, but this is the promise. This is where they all live. Okay? This is Israel. Here's the Sea of Galilee. Here's the Dead Sea. Jesus is up here now. But where is Jesus from? What town is Jesus from? Nazareth. And what was Jesus' profession? He's a carpenter. Well, this is where Jesus is from. What's the difference between being from here and being from here? Water. Jesus doesn't know how to row. He has no clue. So he's completely dependent upon Peter. Why? Because what's his skill? Carpentry. He's an inland man. Which also plays into why it's such a big deal when he tells Peter to go out and get fish. Because they already know. Remember, these are small towns. They all talk. They know this guy is from Nazareth. I mean, remember, how does his ministry start? He opens up the scroll. In the Gospel of John, you have, I can never keep Philip or Nathaniel straight, but when they find out that Jesus is from Nazareth, what do they say? Can anything good come from Nazareth? I mean, people do not think highly of Nazareth. I mean, archaeologists didn't find it until recently. I mean, this was a small town. It's a pit compared to. It was not around. It was a fairly new town at that time too. It wasn't around pre-Babylonian exile. It's a fairly new town, so it has no historical significance in the life of the Israelites. It would have been much better if Jesus was actually from Bethlehem instead of just being born there. At least they could attach themselves to some type of significance. So, okay, so, oh yeah, and another cool thing, if you look at the end of verse 3, it says, and he sat down. It says, Jesus sat down and taught the people from the boat. Did everybody see that? Does it say that in the NIV? Okay. This is another thing where these are the small things where it shows the Middle Eastern influence and kind of the credibility of what's being written, because rabbis sat down when they taught. They did not stand. Even if Jesus or any rabbi are there in the synagogue, they're not standing up as what we're used to. The minute you know they're about to teach, they sit down. So this is another one of those things that, of course, we read it and we're like, and he sat down, okay, whatever. But with a Middle Eastern lens on, you realize this is what rabbis and teachers, those in authority, do. When they're about to teach, they sit down and they teach from the seat. That's another thing that normally we just wouldn't catch. I would. All right, and then any questions at this point? Or just think of this policy dimensions opening up. Okay. So we'll go to verse 4 in scene 2. Verse 4. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." And so, as I put in this section for scene 2, remember where Jesus is from as he's making this request. Jesus is done teaching. Peter's been out all night. He's exhausted. He's been now rowing for this guy from Nazareth in this one spot. And now he tells Peter, after a night of hard work, "I, Jesus, a carpenter from Nazareth, who has no experience in a seafaring business, I have no clue, I want you to go out to the middle of the lake and put out your nets." Okay? And I'll just view, as I said, Jesus had carpentry skills, not fishing skills, nor had he grown up in the fishing culture. Peter knows this, and Jesus' request to let down the nets reflects this point. To a fisherman like Peter, this is a crazy suggestion. They worked at night because the fish feed at night, and they also the fish congregate around streams and springs on the edge of the sea because of the oxygen-rich water that flows into the lake in those spots. So fishing during the day and fishing in the deep part of the lake would seem preposterous to a professional fisherman like Peter. So basically, not only is it bad that you have a carpenter who has no fishing skills requesting that this Peter guy go out to the middle of the lake, but also, one, fishermen don't go out to the middle of the lake because in part, two, it's very dangerous in the middle of the lake due to winds and sudden storms. But then also, most of the fish are over on the coast ends by all the streams because that's where the oxygenated water is. So you have all this stuff, all these factors. Jesus is basically telling Peter, the fisherman, who's been fishing all night, I want you to go where you need. There's the last place you as a fisherman are going to think of going. To the middle of the lake, where it's deep, where the fish most likely won't be, and also where the fish will definitely not be around because it's the middle of the day and they don't feed in the middle of the day. So you have deep, and they're usually not in the deep waters, and you have the middle of the day, and they're usually not out in the middle of the day. So this adds the dynamic. This carpenter, this 30-year-old carpenter from Nazareth, who I barely know, is telling me how to do my job after a night where I caught nothing. So once again, it gets back to the extremes. These are the things that we miss.
There might be some metaphors right there too.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, we'll get there. Clearly, yes. Yes, clearly, Origin would have a field day with this, but once again, Origin is from the West, and so we lose things. We really got actually, yes, Origin is another. So keep in mind, Jesus, I want you to go out to the center of the lake. Okay? So if this guy Jesus is telling you these things, and it's like John, me coming along and saying, John, I want you to, do something with milk. I want you to leave your truck in the middle of the road, turn it off, turn off the refrigerator, and just let it be. You think I'm crazy, I'm arrogant, I'm presumptuous? This is just outlandish. So chances are, if this guy, even though he's healed your mother-in-law, is telling you to do this stuff, and you know what's best, how are you going to respond? You're going to respond, what?
You're nuts.
You're nuts. You're most likely going to be sarcastic.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the other thing too. What's really interesting, that's one of the things that we miss in the English, and one thing that I always love about the Gospel of Mark is Jesus is downright sarcastic.